Dain,
Hey,
welcome to the show.
thanks for having me, dude.
Thank you for coming.
I'm pumped to be here, man. I love your energy. I love the studio here. These guys are fun. This is a nice, beautiful set. You're killing it, dude.
Thank you. I appreciate
2 months
it.
in?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
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 It's exciting. And, it's one of those things, you just got to jump into it, right?
That's it. I think everyone's like, oh, like the podcast wave is like, you're getting in late. I'm like, dude, it's not even started. Like, I really feel like it's like the new Hollywood. Like, people haven't really figured it out yet. We're in the Wild West. Everyone's just kind of messing with it, playing with it, having fun with it. I think there was like the first wave, and we're seeing people really try to push the creativity now. It's been a ton of fun.
And I think when some people do really well with it, they think, oh, well, there's already a Joe Rogan. There's already a Valuetainment. So why would I start a podcast? There's already these big channels. And it's like, there's always going to be different sizes, but not everyone listens to big channels. And there's so many people consuming.
Yeah, I find I like listening to the rogue small channels that are like super niche and weird and have fun personalities. I think it's, just because someone else is doing it doesn't mean you can't kind of have your take on it or your variant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've only been following you a few months, I guess, since we had our first chat. And one of the things that kind of made me want to know more about your personal life is you were posting some videos with your daughters and stuff. So there's a whole dad side.
Oh, yeah.
You post glimpses of it, but I think a lot of people don't talk about the struggles of being a hardcore business person, entrepreneur, creator, and so many people pulling your time. But then you've got this, I call it the guilt. Not everyone calls it guilt, but I think it's guilt. It
is guilt.
Where do you go? How do you split the time? And really, what's worth sacrificing for the time you're taking away from the family? So,
yeah.
How old were your kids, or did you have kids when you started? I guess when you really went, let's go from the Gary Vee. I've heard you say Gary Vee was a bit of a turning point for you. You saw him live.
Yeah, we can start back there. I think, so essentially, like a quick summary of my background was I was in and out of multi-level marketing when I was like in 19, 20, 21. Did really well at that. Then, kind of lost all my money, ended up in debt, and then the company wasn't doing too well. Ended up back in the workforce, selling vacuums and cars, insurance, just doing a lot of sales jobs. And I knew I was like, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I just didn't know how to get in. I figured I had to get out of debt before I could start a business, which was a myth. But yeah, I went through kind of a tough couple of years trying to figure out where I fit. And I always get fired or ostracized working for other people because I always looked at it like I owned it, and that would just piss people off. So I was like, I got to start my own thing. And I went to a Gary Vee event, and there was like 5,000 people. It was like 2018 in Brisbane. And back-to-back speakers all day. And they were like spruiking and selling their products and services and their boot camps and stuff. And I remember distinctively like, someone was selling a boot camp for like $15,000, and I'd admired and loved this person for a long time, and I still do. And that's Grant Cardone. And I remember running to the side of the room, and I asked the lady that was selling the boot camp tickets, I was like, hey, like, can I pay it off on a payment plan? She's like, yeah. I was like, cool. How much is it? She's like, I think it was like $3,600 a fortnight. I was like, fuck, I don't even own that, And then I just remember just feeling like an absolute loser. And Ellie, and I write about this in my book, she, at the time, was so embarrassed she went and cried in the bathroom for an hour and a half and told me later, and I felt terrible. But she felt guilty, and like she was letting me down that I couldn't do this boot camp. And then I remember just sitting there at the back of the room, like just watching all these people listening to these speakers, and everyone was pretty tired and I guess dulled by this point. But it was like, I don't know, I think it was like 5 p.m. and the music was roaring and everyone was running back in the room, and I was getting a coffee as I was coming back in, and Gary just came out on stage and he just said, I'm not here to sell you shit. And people lit up, and I'd never seen so many people so engaged all at once and so like intrinsically tranced by what someone was saying. And that's when I realized this guy really mattered to people, and he'd really transformed the way people see business. And from that point, I was like, I need to do something. Like now I just felt like the urge to start a business right then and there. And it was when he said, you don't need, to pay for these boot camps. You just need to go fucking start a business. And I was like driving home, and I looked over at Ellie and I was like, we got to start a business. She's like, what's the business? I'm like, an agency. And the best part about this, I never worked for an agency. I don't have a degree in marketing or design. And, I joke in the book at the time, had I interviewed, people probably would have laughed at me. So it's ironic. The irony is like now I run a successful agency, and I definitely wouldn't have been qualified to work at one or start one. But yeah, it's around that time when I was making content and getting my first batch of clients, that Ellie fell pregnant. And this was when we were living in the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. And we moved back to Victoria to be near family. And my daughter Harlow was born, and she's 5 now. This is 5 years ago. And I just remember working hard or thinking I was working really hard. And then you have a child, and then you hold them in your arms, and you're like, this feels different. Like I am, like this is a ride or die. This isn't like, you know, you might love your partner, but then something happens when you have a child and you're like, I am responsible for this forever. Like sickness and health, this is a commitment. And I can't tell you the surge of like responsibility that ran through me. And I remember getting home and just getting itchy to start truly building my business. And I think having a child really allowed me to have the perspective of, okay, like I got to be really intentional with my time. I have to be way more productive. I can't fluff around. I can't crack jokes. I can't like, you know, scroll on my Instagram throughout the day. I got to get my work done so I can wrap this up and, you know, go help out with the baby. And now we have our third on the way in December. And I think being a father and being a hardcore businessman, it's tough, man, because you're trying to really rally a team. You're trying to build something, and then you have to turn it off. And I think when you go home, I try to completely forget the fact that I run a business, and I try to be really there with my family. And there's a great quote from Jim Rohn that always rings in my head, and he goes, you know, when you're at the beach with your family, don't bring your briefcase to the beach. And he's like, don't bring the beach to the workplace. Like, you know, work's for work, the beach is for the beach. And I just try to live by that. I work long hours sometimes, I work weekends sometimes, but when I'm at home, I try to be there with my kids, man. Yeah. Yeah,
it's that switch off, right?
It's a hard thing to switch off, dude, but I try to ram that switch off as soon as I get home.
Yeah, me and my wife actually went to marriage counseling about 2 years into starting our business. And there was nothing wrong at the time, but we were starting to hear stories, right? And so we went to a counselor and we're like, hey, we're fine now, but like we're in a high pressure business. So give us some tips. And the number one thing they said was don't talk about work in bed.
Yep.
Switch off when you get home.
Yeah.
If one of you get an email on the couch that has something to do with the other person, forward them the email, let them read it in their time. Don't interrupt their personal space. Like if you don't do that, it becomes a habit to do that.
Yeah.
And then it's really hard to undo.
Yeah, and it's sometimes hard for your team to understand too, like if they don't have kids, because they're like, did you get this thing done last night? I'm like, I was changing nappies and cooking dinner and, you know, dealing with tantrums. I didn't. You know, it's hard, man. It is hard to switch off. When you get that email, that phone call, that text message, that urgent thing that has to happen, I've just had to spend a lot of time training and delegating to my team. So when something does pop up, they know that there's someone else they can call, text, email to get it done, and they don't have to come to me. Yeah.
And daily habits as well become hard because, so you were a PT before, right?
Oh,
fitness is always there a little bit.
Not quite a PT. So
at a gym?
I was a sales rep, then a sales manager, then a club manager. So I managed PTs.
Okay.
So I would help them learn how to make money by having, I guess, being better salespeople. So I was responsible for a lot of PTs.
Yeah. Okay. So that was kind of, you know, the early days of forming how to teach a team, and which is the foundation of business, right? So you said you started an agency without knowing how to run an agency, but I
don't recommend it, by the way.
Well, actually, I kind of do, because I find that the people that say that, what tends to happen is their business is formed on logic and their personality.
Yes.
There's no predisposition of, oh, well, when I was at this place for 20 years, they did it this way, so we kind of just do it this way now. It's like every process that is in that business is because the logical founder wanted to do it that way.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with you. There's a famous story about, do you know the city about Troy?
No.
So the guy who discovered the city of Troy, he was an engineer. So like he was talking to archaeologists and historians, and they're like, the city doesn't exist. But he's like, I found all this literature. Like, I think it exists. And he used his, I guess, engineering mind to try to figure out where it might be. And he found it. He found the city of Troy. The point is, I like what you're saying here. Like when you have an outsider's perspective, or even like a radically different perspective, and you step foot in an industry, it's really interesting. Like if you look at someone like, I guess, you know, popular or unpopular, depending who's listening, but like Elon Musk he's equal parts engineer and equal parts marketer. And it's pretty rare you get someone who understands how to market something and how to engineer something to that level. But when you get that contradictory energy, I think something special happens. And I think when I came into building an agency, I just realized that I'm really good at selling stuff. I'm really good at connecting, building relationships. I'm really good at making stuff fun and easy and like simplified. And I just kind of attacked the agency world with that energy. I could create things, but I didn't have that academic process, art school kind of mind. And I remember kind of being perplexed by people I was interviewing early on about, what it meant to run a design agency. And it's 50% commercial like acumen and relationships, and it's 50% cool creative. And I think that a lot of our competitors are more on the art side of things and not quite as aggressive on the commercial side of business. So I think what I brought to the branding space, and it pissed a lot of people off, was like just a really good commercial sales acumen, which gave us the ability to scale like radically fast compared to other people that were starting similar kind of businesses at the same time.
I think it depends on your client size, right? So if you're going for Jim's mowing guys that are going out on their own and they need a new brand because they're starting their own thing, they're not going to have the budget and they're going to want to deal with a guy who's just the guy that's creating it for them. But when you go commercial to large businesses, whether it's nationally or international, their confidence doesn't always come from, let's say, the best artwork. It comes from knowing that you'll meet the deadline, you'll stick to the budget, you'll be transparent, how the corporate world needs you to operate the project.
Yeah, you're right. I think even at like every level of business, we've faced, people that are in business that essentially when you're running a company, well, what is it? You have a collective of people, you have a problem you solve, and you got to make cash flow to make ends meet, and you got to make sure everyone's happy. You got to make sure the culture's moving, and business owners are always kind of like, ducks on the top of water. They're like paddling like maniacs under the hood, and the ego doesn't really let you tell them or let them tell you that they're actually struggling and suffering. So I think when I get on a call with any business owner, I have empathy. I'm like, these guys are probably in a tough spot. They're probably looking for an alternative route to get more money or more leads for their business. And as much as I could talk about, company naming, package design, logos, colors, fonts, UX, UI, all this kind of stuff, they're like, yeah, but can you get us more clients? So I think what I've learned is that most business owners understand that brand is important, but they see it as an optional secondary thing. What I think we've done really well is help people realize that actually if you do good creative and it is able to convert more leads, it's a worthwhile venture. So like whether it's a Jim's mowing type setup or it's a fashion label, most of the time I think it's a balance between educating people, like, hey, like, have you thought about all of these problems in your business and how they link back to brands? And I think that I was able to connect the dots because I'm trying to help people realize there's actually money in this. There's actually ROI in your font and your color palette and your UX and UI. And they'll challenge it, but I'll go back and forth until they're like, oh, I get it. So this means that I can make more clients. I can increase my conversion rate. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, I never thought of it this way. So like there is a massive educational component to what we do. And if you can really get under the hood of a business owner and what they're actually struggling with, because when they get on a call, they might say, I need a new logo. And then I'll say, like, tell me more about your business. What's keeping you up at night? What's driving you crazy right now? And they're like, oh, my team and the onboarding process and the sales scripts and the ads aren't converting. And then you start to get right into the weeds of their problem. And then you basically ask them, what would it feel like to relieve all this pain? They're like, that'd be great. And I'm like, this is how branding can solve that problem. So just knowing how to do that is, I think, what I brought as a hot sauce or an X factor to how we talk to people. Literally, the product outcome's the same, but I think the conversations I have, and the reason I know this is because we get feedback all the time. People quote around town. They'll go to 10 different brand agencies and they'll come back to me and I'm like, why'd you pick me? And they're like, oh, you just kind of understood my business. Like you seem to really understand the pain I was in and the problem I was trying to solve. And that's it. I think like a good 50% of a sale is just understanding how to have empathy with their problem and like have them feel like, oh, this person gets it. And that's half the battle. And the other half is just saying, by the way, like I think we should design a new logo because it just kind of sucks. There's a bit of that, but you got to win them on the idea that this person understands exactly what I need to do and how I need to do it, even deeper than I know how. Once you hit that sweet spot, man, it becomes quite easy to sell creative.
I think the lesson you've laid out there as well is having the confidence as a business owner to tell the potential lead that's going, get me a quote. Slow down.
Yeah.
We really want to help you, but we cannot do it well if you don't let us go through this process. Because people need to just get them a price. Oh, the sooner I get them a price, the sooner they'll close the deal.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen because you don't understand them when you're giving them that price.
Yeah. The only caveat I would say is like, as you move up the food chain, as you start to work with bigger and bigger businesses, they seem to understand and appreciate branding more. So I notice like when someone's like naught to a mil, it's like nice to have. When it's like 1 to 10 mil, they're like, maybe I'll get around to it. North of 10 mil, people are like, yeah, our brand sucks. Like, can you please help us? So I think the more someone's been in battle, the more they're aware of what you can bring to the table. So anyone who's listening to this who sells creative or is an agency of some kind, I think that the higher you climb up the totem pole, the more people will appreciate what you do, and they're far less likely to challenge the price. From my experience, yeah.
Yeah, because the need is there, the understanding of the importance is there, right? It's always hard to sell something to somebody who doesn't have the urgency because they know they need it, but it's not that important. So then the sales cycle becomes so long as well. And it's like, as a business owner, when you're in the trenches like you were when you were on your own back in the day, it's like you're calling people constantly, you're following up constantly, and you're not making the sales, but it's because you're just not finding the right people that actually treat it with the same importance you're trying to get them to.
Oh, exactly. It's almost like imagine your mom trying to use a computer. It's like, well, what are you using the computer for? I just want to do emails. She's not going to care about, the RAM and the graphics card and all that stuff. But you talk to a kid and you ask him like, hey, dude, what are you going to do with the computer? Oh, man, I'm going to play Battlefield 6 16 hours a day. It's like, okay, well, you're going to need a good graphics card. Like, I think you got to attach the right solution to the right problem. Another analogy is like, if you think about, driving a car. I know you just got your license back. Congratulations. Like if your objective is like, I just want to get to work every day. I just want to drive to work. It's like, okay, cool. There's one set of problems. You probably don't care about the engine and the performance nature of the vehicle. But if you're trying to race around a track with competitors, let's just say you're a fashion label with $100 million revenue a year, you're racing around a racetrack in a Porsche and you want to get every little 1%er you can under that hood to give you as much of an edge as possible. So when you're starting a business, you're kind of like that person who's like, I just want to get to work, man. When you're at the higher echelons of business, you want performance. And I think that's when people start to care about those little 1%ers. At the beginning, you're looking for that 90%er change. That's why people go to seminars. That's why they buy books. They're looking for that silver bullet to change their life. Once you're in business, you've been doing it, you've been in battle for 10 years, you're like, what's that little 1%er I can get to get that next level unlock in my business?
I think branding's always been one of the important key factors, but historically, if we go back, let's say 20 years, I've got a family business that my grandpa started. It's 45 years old, right? Terrible branding. But back then it was like the only accessible branding was like a breakfast commercial you'd pay for and catch a few people before they leave for work. Like there was no social media. You had your white pages, maybe you could afford a TV commercial and you'd sign write your car if you're a tradie, and that was it. But I think that's where there's so much opportunity, but also confusion now, right? Because there's just so many medias to do I go on all of them? Do I go on one of them? And then it's like that decision fatigue where you just go, oh, I just can't figure it out. And then you wonder why, your business isn't where you want it to be because it's just so complicated. It used to be, can you afford TV or not? Or can you afford billboards or not? There was not that many options, right?
Yeah, I think if you think about marketing, and let's just say like the 80s, you had television, you had radio, you had newspapers, and that's kind of it. You had trade shows, I guess. If someone was going to start a service-based business, it was all about like, do we have, street front signage? So when someone driving past looks over, they see our name and they might come in one day. Now it's that storefront signage is now a post on Instagram or a post on TikTok. Like and
how do I get it on Main Street?
How do I get it on Main Street? Which is, why people chase virality. I think that, the decision fatigue that's come into the market is, you're right. It's just there's so much more competition. You're on that racetrack with tens of thousands of cars. It's not just you and your local community anymore. So I think that you got to be smarter than ever and you got to be more valuable than ever. And I think that if you think about our parents, right, like when they went home at night, they couldn't go on the internet. That was it. Like you're home, you got the television, you got radio, that's it. You don't have a way to access outward. You only receive what's coming in. Whereas now we have these devices in our pocket where we can open up, film something, send it to the whole world in a heartbeat. But that at the same time means that everyone has access to that. So it becomes overwhelming because you're seeing so much noise and so much activity. It's just like, where do we even start? It's overwhelming. It's difficult for business owners. And most business owners we chat to, they only have one or two channels to build or generate business. Like it's pretty rare a business has like a TikTok, an X, a LinkedIn, a podcast, a website.
All doing well.
they might have the accounts, but they might not be active. Like, it's super rare. Like, look at most businesses, they might dominate one channel, but they're not really doing 2 or 3 or 4.
Yeah, because it's just, you've got to scale to a size where you have staff to do all those things and run all those channels and post all the content.
Yeah.
So if we go back to starting an agency without a creative background, when you did convince the first customer to get on board, and I'm sure you remember, everyone remembers the first one, what did you actually do to get the work done?
That's a great question. Yeah, the funny part about this was like, so I self-taught myself graphic design when I was, 12 and a half, 13. And I used to go into a website called pixeltolife.com. And rather than watching a YouTube channel back then, I would scroll through basically a web browser, and it would be like step 1, and it was a screenshot and a descriptor. It was like looking at an IKEA catalog and going, how do I design? So I taught myself how to design, logos and imagery and edit photos and stuff like that when I was a kid. And I was always on the internet. I grew up on the streets of the internet, like I said before, and all my friends were Americans, and we went back and forth on creative design. I ended up being a kind of like a virtual creative director of a gaming community called Warrior Nation. We had thousands of members all across the globe. I would design, all of the banners and all of the artwork for all of our marketing and everything on the platform. So I kind of had that under my belt, and I always had a natural ability to draw and sketch and think of cool things. And then I found that, throughout the workforce, I was always really good at like whipping up a poster for something or, designing stuff. And then when I was 19, I was working at a t-shirt print press shop, and you might come in and say, hey, I want a t-shirt with a unicorn juggling chainsaws for my band. It's called Radical Unicorns. And I would have to like sketch and illustrate something on the spot and then screen print the shirts by the next day. So I always had like this ability to kind of quickly ideate, think, and market things. But it wasn't until like, this Gary Vee event that I was like, okay, like I'm going to go out the market and I'm going to like figure this thing out. But the first step I had taken was I'm just going to email, text, and like call people and ask them if they know anyone that wants a business card, a poster, or what have you. The first design job I got was a teeth whitening brand that wanted to put up posters in gyms. So I was like, all right, I'm going to go on the internet and I'm going to find, photos of jacked people with nice teeth, and then I'll put the logo in there, and I just threw it in the Photoshop and started blending it together. So that kind of came naturally to me, and it was a $50 job. And I remember just being so pumped that I made $50. And I remember seeing that money hit my bank account. I was like, fuck, I just made $50 working for myself. And this sounds kind of dumb, but it just, that first $50 was just like so much validation that like, I could do this. I text someone, I got a job, they talked to me, I got their assets, I threw the posters together, I sent it back to them. They loved it. They printed it out. They put it up in the gym. I just felt like addicted at that point. And then it was just like, I wonder if I can get $100, $500, $5,000. And I just started stacking these invoices, and one project would lead to another. And one introduction to someone, helping them, would then introduce me to their friends. But all while this was happening, I was producing social media content, talking about what I was doing as I was doing it. That got me more jobs.
What year was that when you started doing that content?
It really started to pop off like early 2019. And it was crazy because I remember this was like when Instagram was just kind of coming out of the influencer era, and it was kind of losing its identity. Like TikTok was popping off, and people were just trying to figure out what the next generation of Instagram was. But there was a guy on the social platform. His name was Michael Janda, at More Janda, Janda. And he would do carousels. And he was a designer, and a carousel, for those that don't know this, is like, it's like basically a PowerPoint on Instagram. It's 10 slides, vertical format, and he would have a cool title, and then he would teach a little lesson. It's kind of like a blog, kind of like a little mini PowerPoint. You read it yourself. It's like reading a little book virtually. It's like a little ebook you read quickly. And his page was going nuts, and then there was a few other people doing it. Christo was doing it, and a few others. And I was like, I like this format. I'm just going to teach stuff I think is rad as I'm learning it in this format. And there was one point where we were getting 10,000 subscribers on Instagram a week. And I just caught that wave right at that moment when that was like a cool format, and not many people were doing it. And then I rode that wave for 3 years. But I remember my mentor said to me at a certain point, he's like, just so you know, this trend will end and you'll have to set yourself up for the next thing. And he's like, I know this because I've been on this platform for like 10 years. And I just remember him saying, just make sure you don't put all your bets on this. And he had this great analogy. He's like, imagine you have a table with one leg. He's like, what happens if someone kicks that leg out, man? I was like, you're right. That's when I started to think about, okay, I really got to take this agency thing seriously. And I started to do meta ads and email marketing and built a website and started running blogs. I wanted to diversify the risk so that when the trend kind of faded out, and it did, we were set to kind of go into the next era, if that makes sense. But yeah, the lesson in that period was like the algorithm will constantly change and you can't be angry at it. You just kind of got to ride the wave that's currently there. And then when that dies out, surf back out to the back and try to find the next one. It's
crazy you said that because just last night I was watching a Mr. Beast reel and someone was asking me about his top performing videos on YouTube. And last year it was all of the $1 versus $1 million, you know, like a $1 hotel versus $1 million hotel or whatever, and did cars and boats and holidays. And of his, I think it was top 10 or top 20 videos, more than half were that format. But then he completely stopped doing it. And the person was asking him, like, you had a winning formula. Why would you stop it? He goes, because it's not going to last forever. So when's the best time to stop it?
Yeah.
While people aren't sick of it. Find the next formula.
He's right. There's a great quote from Pharrell Williams. And this is around the era, like, remember Timberland, Justin Timberlake, all those collaborations. There was like a vibe at that point. I think this is like 2008, 2009. Pharrell Williams was dominating. He was basically creating this new genre, this new wave of music. And he did one album, then he kind of did another one, and then he completely changed his style. And someone was asking him, why did you change your... He's like, you own the music scene, and you were that sound, and everyone was like jamming to your stuff, and every celebrity on the planet wanted to be a part of it. And he goes, yeah, it was cool, but it was going to not be cool. And he's like, I'd rather jump off that train before it crashed and burned into the next thing. And he's right. I think you got to make sure that you don't end up as one of those people that you just playing an old song that everyone's tired of hearing. You gotta look around the corner and you gotta predict what's the next thing. And I think this is when our team 2 years ago were like, man, it's podcasting. Like, and everyone at the time was like laughing at us. They're like, you're late to the table. I'm like, nah, like there's an era of like studio quality podcasting that's not quite established yet. And we're gonna try to get on that train early. And it's 2 years later, as of, I think, we had our anniversary event last night. We celebrated 2 years on the podcast, and it's like, now we're crushing it. Like, that's the next wave. And I think the wave we're in now is everything's kind of gone from, short form. Everyone's kind of hungry for long format again. We're kind of past the short format era. People want a juicier piece of media. And people are watching YouTube more than they're watching movies, more than they're watching reality shows, more than they're watching, documentaries or anything. Like, everything's kind of shifted to YouTube. And I think that people are going home, laying in bed, watching YouTube, sitting on the couch with the family, watching YouTube. So I was like, that's the next era. We got to get in there early.
Yeah, I totally agree, because I think Reels were exciting. It's that dopamine fix, but you're a zombie now on Reels. People want to, like, I find myself doing all the time, just going, I got to get off Instagram and go on YouTube and find something longer to watch.
Yeah, your brain is just like craving something with more substance.
Yeah, and something you're going to get real value out of, because there's only so much value you can get. You can get really good value, but only a piece of it or a short amount in a reel.
Yeah,
but it's like, I want to learn something a bit longer, and you see a lot of events of stage speaking and things like that. You've done plenty yourself. Yeah. There's so much good long format in there. That's why people go to 2-day events and 3-day events and week-long events, because they want more than what they can get in a 1-hour video, right?
Yeah, once something hits critical mass and everyone's doing it, you got to start asking yourself, like, okay, what's the next cool niche thing that isn't quite in the zeitgeist yet, and how do I get involved in that?
And podcasting, in terms of a media type, is quite new. I mean, Apple literally invented it 20 years ago. No one knew about it for the first 10.
I remember Steve Jobs, talking about people asking him what a podcast was. He had to explain it. Like 2 decades ago, he had to. Even dude, like 2011, I remember sitting in a cafe with someone telling him I just listened to this podcast with Lewis Howes, and they're like, "What's a podcast?" I'm like, "What do you mean what a podcast is?" And it also was like predominantly audio for the first 10 years. Like, podcast video has only really been around for like not even fully and at a production level more than maybe a decade.
Well, Spotify only really just did it with Joe Rogan, right? Joe Rogan, I think, is what triggered the video on Spotify to be enabled. Yeah. That's like a few years ago. It's not.
Yeah. Yeah. And just before, do you know who inspired Joe Rogan to start the podcast? Do you know Tom Green?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Tom Green was like, he had a whole basement set up because he had TV shows on MTV, but he got tired of the commerciality of what he could and couldn't air and what he couldn't say. And he's like, screw it, I'm going to like broadcast my own television show from my basement. And he kind of created the first like video pod. If you type in Tom Green podcast, it's amazing watching that. But like, I think people are craving raw, authentic, real stuff, like real conversations, real formats, not this produced, engineered, structured format as much. Yeah.
Yeah. I think if, anybody who's putting out short form content, either you're recording it specifically to be short format, which means you've probably scripted it. Otherwise, you're going to sound like an idiot just waffling on. Or you've taken a long conversation that was fantastic and you've clipped down the best parts.
Yeah.
But then you're only giving those little bits and it's normally the most polished part. People want to see the raw thing, they want to hear all the little bits and pieces between those little viral moments.
Yeah, I think people want access to people that are like them. There's only two reasons people really engage, and I've found with the data that my team look at, people either observe and consume people they want to be like, or they observe and consume people that they feel like are already like them. Like they're like, when people watch Hormozi, if they're a gym bro and they like money and they're like hustling and selling, they're going to be like, this guy's like me. Like, this is my tribe, So it's understanding that everyone is appealing to someone. You just got to find your tribe and find a way to get in front of them and make media. Some people just spend all their energy on short format, and that's fine. But I just think that I'm seeing that there's a trend that is going back to, consuming 1 or 2 hours of a format.
I mean, look, everybody needs inspiration, right? And especially when you're at a low point in life, we look to it for somebody else who's there and talking about it, so you don't feel like you're alone, or has been through it and is talking about how they got through it. And that's the beauty of all of this usually, is that, it's helping people realize you're not alone. We're all not that different.
Exactly.
And if we talk about it, then you know that. But sitting there on your own wondering.
Totally, man. And like one of our clients, Andrew Schultz, has a podcast called The Flagrant Podcast. And when we're working with him on his brand strategy and identity design for the podcast, their team is basically like, do you know why this podcast was the fastest growing podcast on YouTube? And I was like, explain it to me. And they said that Andrew wanted to create the podcast because he missed his friends at home and he wanted to create a hang. And they wanted to be they wanted to be the greatest hang in the universe. So they engineered the show to be like, this is the show you pop on when you miss your boys from home and you want to hang out with a bunch of larrikins that are, obnoxious and cracking absurd jokes and just riffing on the stuff that you're not allowed to riff on. And that's it. That's the magic of the entire show. Like if you watch the Flagrant podcast, it's a boys club and they're just there to hang out and have fun and like hit the zeitgeist topics of the week and jam out. And it's like, well, their entire viewership is listening because they miss their friends, or they want a sense of like, I'm not alone. I'm hanging out virtually via proxy with people. I see the world the way they see it.
Yeah, look, like you, I moved away from my kind of early stage friends and family. And one of my friends had his 30th last year. And it was that feeling of we're all back around a campfire telling stories from when we were teenagers, It was like, you sit there and you're like, fuck, I miss that, Like I didn't think about any of the problems in my life while we were just sitting around having a laugh. But you bolt on all of your life things and you throw a family in a business and you do lose that.
Yeah.
But if you can switch that on the car ride home or when you're out for a run or a walk or whatever, it kind of gives you that break of all the pressures of everything else that's come on, right?
Yeah, and there's different formats and different flavors for different people. Like I'm obsessed with there's this channel I follow at the moment. His name's Casper Sight, and he just reviews like horror clips that he finds on the net. And it's like not essentially brain rot, but it's just I turn it on in the afternoon, and myself and my fiance, once the kids are in bed, we just sit in bed and laugh at this guy, or we watch Kill Tony or something. Like there's these different energies, and it's like the format's important, but I think the chemistry between the characters and their energy and how they kind of deliver themselves is the thing that makes them unique. So even if you're thinking to yourself, well, the podcast format already exists, there's people out there that would enjoy your energy and your perspective and how you feel and how you talk.
So I was at a business roundtable last night, and there was about 9 of us, and we were all going around kind of introducing ourselves. And the topic of the night was everyone had to give a problem in their business and kind of help each other solve it in a short amount of time. We had a few hours together. And one of the guys who ended up being the last to go, you could tell was quite nervous while everyone else was talking, but we'd all met him before. And we figured out why. So it gets to his turn and he kind of gave us his story about how he's going for a lot of financial trouble in his business. They stuffed up the bookkeeping a bit and now they're in a bit of debt and he's not sure his way out of it. And he spoke the whole time kind of head down, almost like he was ashamed to say it out loud, but felt like he was at a point where he had to ask for help finally. And you could tell he felt alone in that problem. But everyone in the room was like, oh, yeah, dude, that was me last year or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. Like, yeah, dude, don't worry about it. We'll tell you what we did and we'll figure it out. You know, like it's not a problem you're alone in. And so you gave us a glimpse of that before where you couldn't afford those tickets. And I think that grind, that's really where you become who you are in business. And it's where you appreciate, you know, how hard it actually is to do this. But you probably, you know, you were doing it at a time where podcasts and stuff weren't around either. People aren't talking about this stuff. Did you feel alone in that problem or?
I definitely felt alone. I was always like the black sheep at school. I went to so many different schools as a kid and I was always kind of like the outsider, the new guy. So I always was kind of left to my own devices. And for me, that was exploring art, that was sketching and drawing. I would always crawl into my head and just create characters and universes and stuff. And another timeline, I might have been an author or something, but I like to play with my imagination. And I always felt like I'm just a weird kid. And, you know, when I think about media and content, the first few things that were there for me, like I was obsessed as a kid with like Jim Carrey movies. Like I remember just playing The Mask or Ace Ventura.
Oh, the best. Yeah, like, we watched them like a month ago.
Yeah, I remember watching that. I'm like, this is my energy. Like like I don't have friends like this. And I remember just watching those movies on repeat. And I just became obsessed with like movies as a kid. So the escapism for me and how I dealt with not feeling alone as a kid was like watching like my favorite comedians in movies. When I got a little bit older and I started to realize that, you know, I got to make money and I got to get ahead in life, I was like obsessed with like Tony Robbins tapes. And I remember having like the CDs and just playing the CDs of Tony Robbins, Unleash the Power Within in my car and beating my chest and doing, you know, those breathing exercises and all those like fun things that Tony Robbins does. And also like I would listen to like Alan Pease or Jim Rohn. But I would try to get my hands on cassette tapes. I became obsessed with like learning about the human mind, behavioral settings, language, tonality. Like I felt like I'm like, these people are talking about things that I think are fascinating and interesting. And I would bring them up at like groups of friends and they're like, oh, I don't care about that stuff. But it always like daunted on me, like, what is it in my mind that is so obsessed with like progression and growth and like trying to master things. And I've learned over time, I just don't have an off switch. And I just like learning about those little tiny things that can make life better.
And there's just, you know, there's not many people like that because most people, and credit to them, do want to switch off.
Yeah.
But it's almost like you can't. Like I'm sure you probably have 100 domains of business names you've thought of over the years. You know?
Yeah, if you go to my GoDaddy account, it's scary, dude.
And they rang me the other day and they're like, do you know you got 20 domains expiring? I'm like, let them go. I don't need them. But if you've got that, you know, one, it's lonely because it's hard to find other people that have that.
Yeah.
But when you do, it's like you're on another level with people. It would be no different to being an elite sports person, right? And there's only the people at the top understand you. Because everyone else is like, dude, why it's raining? Why are you out running still? You know, like you're not normal.
Yeah. No, it wasn't until like a year ago that I was like, oh, I found my people. Like I started to like really hang out with entrepreneurs here in Sydney. You know, I'm starting to like, you know, rub shoulders with some pretty significant people in media. And now I feel like I'm like, oh, okay, I was always kind of meant to be in this echelon. I wasn't meant to fit in, you know, like I think people struggle with this on a human perspective. They try to feel like they could belong somewhere and it's human nature, right? Like even if you know, I remember Cohen Ray explaining the psychology of horses and like, you know, how, you know, a horse will have a behavior and if the tribe or the group, I don't know, we call them like a herd of horses, doesn't like what that one horse is doing, they'll bite it on the ass until it like gets in a line. That's kind of like society. Society tries to bite you on the ass until you fit in. And I think that entrepreneurship, business, and trying to like build something, it's really going against the grain of the majority. And once you get comfortable with that, you realize that there actually is other people, like you said, in that room where that guy was in, where other people were like, yeah, I almost went bankrupt too. He's like, oh, okay, like how do I get out of it? You got to find community. And sometimes people's way of doing that is listening to a podcast, reading a book, cassette tapes, beating their chest to Tony Robbins tapes. there's tools out there, and I think once you find it, people feel less lonely. And sometimes there's no shame in not having that group, but creating like those imaginary friends. And this sounds really lame, dude, but I remember like I would do like a 2-hour drive every day to one of my jobs, and I would play like the Tony Robbins tapes or the Jim Rohn tapes, and I wouldn't just listen to them. I would imagine that they were sitting next to me, speaking just to me. And I'm serious about this, like for hours and weeks and months on end, like I'm sitting next to Tony Robbins and he's talking to just me. And it sounds delusional, but there was something in that allowed me to really take in what he was saying as if he was right there. So if you don't have people around you that can help you right now, like get those imaginary friends, put the tapes on, pretend they're there.
Yeah, Patrick Bet-David was a big one for me.
Yeah.
I started listening to him when he was still kind of doing the whiteboard sales tip videos, you know?
Yeah.
And that's how I've never done a business course to this day, because there's people like that out there that become your mentor before you have a person-to-person mentor, right?
Yeah, like, and I would encourage people to go deep. Like I remember listening to every single video on YouTube from Tony Robbins and every single video on YouTube from Grant Cardone. And then I bought all of Grant Cardone's books and listened to all his books 40 times. And then I went to his seminars, and go deep on one person until you could literally repeat what they would say in a situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've got something you love about Grant Cardone, but one thing he said to me very early on was the whole 10X idea, right? It's like, whatever you think this is going to be, it's going to be 10 times harder. It's going to take 10 times longer. It's going to cost 10 times more money. And if you apply that to everything, then it's like setting yourself, your own expectations. But it's true more than ever in the business world, because it is actually just way harder than people almost let you in on.
It's way harder. Like building a business is like tremendously difficult. It's like trying to put together an F1 team. Like there's so many moving parts. You have to know all the parts yourself. You're trying to bootstrap it on a budget. But like Grant Cardone, like the best thing I think I've taken from him, other than the 10X rule, which I love as well, is he has this great quote, and he says, "Wherever you go, there you are." And what he means by that is like, you're the problem and you're the solution. Wherever you go, there you are. Meaning like, if you're in a problem right now, you're right there in that problem because of yourself. And he goes, there's 4 types of people in that setting. There's, the people that are the retreaters. And they're the ones that are proactively running away from their problems. If your bills are overdue, ignore it. If your boss is angry at you, don't talk to him about it. Like hide from them. Like he's like, there's the retreaters that run away from their problems. And then he said there's like the normal level of activity, which is like people that just try to fit in. They try to do what's expected of them. And he actually says this is the most dangerous type of person, the person who's trying to be normal. Don't work too hard. Don't burn yourself out. Don't push boundaries. Don't piss people off. Don't rock the boat. Like he's like, those people are dangerous in business. You got to stay away from the normal mentality. And then he's like, then there's like people that take action. They push themselves a little bit and they go a little bit outside their comfort zone. But what I love about Grant, he's like, you want to be the 4th type of person, which is like massive action, like all out, everything you have, empty the tank, all gas, no brakes. If you want to build a business, you have to live at least a portion of your time in a week at that 4th level, because wherever you go, there you are. And if you're giving it your max, you're going to get an epic outcome. And if you're giving it a normal amount of activity, you're going to get a normal outcome. And I remember playing the 10X rule on repeat. I'm not exaggerating, for like 2 years, almost daily. And my favorite chapter is chapter 6, Don't Be a Little Bitch. Like, so anyone who's listening to this, if you're in a hard predicament in your life right now, download the 10X rule, put on chapter 6 straight away. Thank me later.
I've got a sales coach in our business, and if we don't cold call, he makes us ring him and go, "My name's Rick, and I didn't cold call today because I'm a little bitch." And it's true, because 10X rule is great, but also you need accountability, and you need to be very careful of what you apply the 10X to, because you can spend 10 times your effort in something that's not going to give you 10 times the outcome as well, but you feel like you work 10 times harder.
I know, but if you run at things really aggressively, quickly, you learn what not to do fast.
Yeah.
And I think that, and you can go too far, right? Like you can go too far in the wrong thing. But I think if you're looking at a problem and you're like, I think there's something here, but I'm not quite sure if it's the right move, like just run at it, man. Like give it everything you have, attack that target with everything you've got. And instead of spending 6 months procrastinating and testing it, you spent 6 weeks running at it, learning that it was the wrong thing. And then you spend another 6 weeks running at another thing until eventually and you'll pinball around a bit, but then you'll learn at every dead end, you'll learn a little lesson. You're like, okay, don't cold call like that, or don't talk to a customer like that, or don't forget to follow up with the client. You learn these things, what not to do. And even if you don't learn what to do, spend a ton of time learning what not to do. And that stuff's valuable too.
The procrastination that kicks in when you started something that's not working out, but you're not giving yourself enough repetitions of it to actually know. Because like anything in a small amount's not going to work. You could email 100 people and it might not work. But if you email 1 million people, the percentages might be unreal. You just haven't done enough of it, right? And that's a Grant Cardone principle as well, is that?
Yeah, it's like someone saying, I've got an e-com store. I tried running meta ads. They don't work. So I gave up. That's the worst idea ever. Yeah. It's like, look at the stats online, how e-com businesses succeed. It's through meta ads. So then you got to figure out like, okay, I'm doing it wrong, or I'm missing something, or I need to connect with a professional, or what have you. Like, I think, yeah, people do give up too quickly, and they don't give it enough energy for a long enough period to get any traction.
Well, it's very hard to get through the no's, right? And I think if you speak to business owners, there's a sweet spot, maybe let's call it like 1 to 5 mil, where you can grow on what you've kind of built from right when you hit 1 mil. But 5 to 10 plus is like a whole new world. That's so you get to a massive overheads and staff and distractions that continuing the lead funnel of work, especially if you're a service-based business, to continue feeding the beast with leads, it's really hard because you need a lot of work to cover overheads.
Oh yeah, and you can't just use what used to work, right? Like what will get you to 5 mil could be word of mouth. It could be a little bit of social media, but what's going to get you from 5 to 10 is a lot of social media and a ton of word of mouth and a ton of outreach and a ton of cold calls and coffees. Like you have to have a table with a ton of legs on it. If you want to get to 10 mil, like it requires in a service-based business, a tremendous amount of outbound activity. You can't just wait for leads to come in. You have to find a way to get out in the market. The market changes, the algorithms change, meta ads become more expensive and less effective. Entrepreneurship's hard, but I think that is entrepreneurship, is like, okay, there's a new obstacle. I have to myself engineer together with my team a way around this quickly. And I have to test a ton of stuff, and I have to know when to quit, and I have to know when to keep going. And I think so many people that hit that 5-year itch or that 5 million bubble, it really requires like a completely different approach to building a business from 5 to 10 than what got you to 5.
And to do it quickly, to come up with the next strategy quickly, because money or cash flow dies very quick.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And and the dynamics change. Now you have team. Now you have like mouths to feed. Now you have bills to pay and debt maybe to collect. Like, it just requires a different format. And I think when I hit that wall, for me it was like, okay, we're going to do financial forecasts. We're going to do P&Ls. I got to invest in a CFO. We're going to have to get like really good accounting. We're going to have to research R&D to get money back from the government. Like these are all things that aren't like things I want to do, but it's like, okay, cool. Like, I got into agency land because it's fun and creative. Now I'm doing all this like super corporate, like investigative analytics. But you have to be willing to kind of go on the journey of the next era and what it requires of you.
Yeah, it's funny when you said that. I was thinking about a conversation I had the other day about kind of doing a job you love and it's your passion. It's like you can only really maintain that though at a certain size, because at a point it becomes a job, because now you're doing the back end stuff and you're having those meetings and like you're basically part of the corporate world just in your own business. And you've got to find ways obviously to stay attached to the bits you enjoy. But no matter what, if you really want to scale a successful business, you are just going to end up not doing the stuff you like.
No, exactly. At least for a period. I think I'm coming back to a period now where I get to. Even Gary Vee, like, he was recently talking about how the last 4 years he's done probably the least amount of time and energy and effort on content that he ever has, because he's got VaynerX, he's got VaynerMedia, he's got like his companies that are really starting to ramp up. So he's admitted, he's like, I've not been able to spend the last 4 years really doing what I really want to spend my time doing. He's like, this was required of me. I needed to spend time and energy on doing these things. And then as of this month, he's like, I'm going all out. Like if you go into Gary Vee's social media right now, he's recruiting, a multitude of people for each platform. Like he's going all in. Like you're going to see stuff that Gary's never done on these social platforms before. And I think I'm coming out of a season of business too, whereas the last 2 years, I've just been like really inside my agency trying to build teams, train divisions, acquire higher echelon clients, managing our own rebrands, launching our podcast. And it's been hard for my team because they need me in all of these areas. And I've had to kind of use finite resources to like juggle these things. And it wasn't until I started hiring more people, somewhat prematurely and then running a risk of like damaging other parts of the business, that we went through this season. And now it's like, it's kind of like the dust has settled, the team's stronger, everyone's more adept and ready than ever. And like myself and my media team are like, sick. Now, how do we dedicate 1 or 2 days a week just for content? It's taken me 6 years to get to the point where we're like, okay, these 2 days a week, just content. That's the stuff I love doing. But sometimes in business, you don't get to do the things you love. You have to figure out, you know, what parts of your business really require the most firefighting, because you can't solve every problem. You can't scale every part of your business all at once. You are constantly faced with finite resources and a continuum of choices where it's like, I need to do both things, but which one's going to be the better bet right now? You know, it's like choosing which child you love the most. It's really hard.
Yeah, there's not enough food to go around. Who are we feeding first?
Exactly. It's like in the Batman movie where he has to pick between his 2 girlfriends, which one he wants to keep. Like it's hard, man. And I think it's you have to be thrifty. You have to love it, and you have to find a way to make it fun. And I think that there's been periods in my business where things just haven't felt fun, and it's your duty and obligation to find a way to make it fun. And if you can't, bring someone else in to take over that portion of your business and get back to the stuff that gives you energy.
So talk to me through scaling customer size, because there's a real different strategy to bigger corporate customers, right? Because their decision-making is way different. You're not calling the founder, you're not calling the director. But to get through to those people can be really hard. And I know for some people, they're just cold calling them. But branding is probably a big part of that strategy, because they're not going to pick up the phone unless the person calling them is a brand they trust or they've viewed or they've seen or...
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think yeah, okay, let's say, let's break the market down into different portions. You have, let's just say, and this isn't like accurate. Some people are going to like, you know.
Oh, he was off by $1, yeah.
Yeah, he was off. No, I see it differently. But like, just for the sake of the teaching here, if you go, okay, like let's say 0 to 1 mil, there's a certain type of mentality. And that typically is, I'm just excited that I've started my journey. I can't believe I'm monetizing myself. I've just quit my job. This is really working. I can't believe it. I got a couple friends helping me. There's this like honeymoon period at the start where people are like naive, not really in the reality of what business really is yet. They're romanticized by it. And they're probably eating shit, but they're like, okay, this is kind of fun at the same time. I can't believe I'm doing this. Then you hit 1 million, and then you're like, okay, but like, I don't really have a lot of money in the end of the year in the bank. Like, we did 1 million rev, like where's the money? And then you realize, oh, we need an EBITDA and we need a financial forecast. And then you realize that there's another level. Then you have like 1 to 5. And I think that's where things get real crazy, is because you're hiring people, you're training them, you're dealing with recruitment, onboarding, processing, all the rest of it. And you're the founder, you're kind of driving everything. You're driving the marketing, you're driving the content, you're driving the website, you're driving the sales team, you're driving the outcome delivery. Like you're in there doing everything like 1 to 5 mil. And you're trying to ask yourself the question, like, am I crazy? Like, why am I doing this? Why am I building a business? Oh my God, I'm not getting paid enough for this shit. If you're crazy enough to keep going, there's like 5 to 10. And this is where you start to build an executive team. This is where you really start to truly try to delegate responsibility, and you try to get people to kind of come in behind you. Usually the 5 to 10, from my experience, happens around the time people get the 4-year itch. They're like, I'm tired of doing it all, eating shit. I want to try to build something way better than this. I'm not going to stay here. I'm going to go to the 10, right? It's almost like, why stay at 5 if we can just go to 10? 10 to 100, let's just use that as a period where there's an executive layer, and from a brand strategist perspective or someone who runs an agency, selling from 1 to 10, let's just say selling from 0 to 1, selling from 1 to 10, and selling from 10 to 100, 3 different cohorts. Selling the person at the beginning, you're really trying to show them, like, I am going to help lead you out of this problem. Predominantly, like when I'm working with people sub $1 million, they really look at me as their savior. They're like, please help me, save my life. I'm dying here. 1 to 5, they're like, hey, I really want to delegate. I really want to automate. Like, how do I have a better business that runs without me having to do everything? That's usually the predominant problem. And in 10 to 100, you're dealing with the CMO, you're dealing with a staff member who might be entrepreneurial or intrapreneurial, but they're kind of like above the delivery team and then below the executive leadership team, and they've been tasked with the responsibility of going and solving this problem. And the way you sell to someone at the beginning is like, you want to give them hope and give them a hug that, I got you. I'm going to help you get this business to 5 mil. 1 to 5, I'm going to help you automate and systemize your business. I'm going to brand it. It's going to be better than ever. And then when you start dealing with more enterprise-sized clients, you want to build a relationship. you can't be transactional with someone in a team. Otherwise, you just look like everyone else they're talking to. So you got to try to do your best to really build a relationship. 2 is you're also trying to make them look good. They're coming to you so that they look good to their boss, they look good to their team, and you're selling maybe multiple layers of people. There might be a gatekeeper, a CFO who's signing off on it. There might be someone who's a manager who's like responsible for this person to make sure they don't make a shitty decision. And then there's that person who wants to look like a hero to their company. So the way you sell to that person is like you're trying to tell them, I'm not going to take your job away from you, but I'm going to make you look like a superhero in front of your team. They're going to be obsessed with you. You're going to get a promotion. It's like you got to really try to think about when you're on a sales call, try to sit in the other person's seat and really try to feel and have empathy for like, what do they themselves want? So even though they're coming to me to help them brand their company, I'm like, this person in marketing probably is dealing with blogs, emails. They're probably getting asked to do a lot. They probably have finite time and they're probably just trying to go home and relax on the weekend, right? So I'm trying to make them feel like I'm going to make their life better too. And I'm going to help them make sure that they get a promotion with their boss. I even say this on sales calls. I'm like, do you want a promotion? They're like, yeah, I kind of been looking for one. I'm like, how can I help you with this pitch, get it across the line? And they're like, no one else I've talked to is talking like this. Then I'll talk about the enterprise founder or the enterprise CEO. They usually have dealt with a bunch of bullshit. Their bullshit radar is like really sensitive. And you have to make sure that you can be seen as someone who's peer level. When an enterprise founder looks at you as someone they can boss around, they're not going to respect you. They're not going to appreciate your price on your invoice. They're just going to see you as another employee. So the game you try to play with the really big enterprise type clients is you have to be like, I'm a peer. I get what you're going through and I get the problems you deal with every day. And it's always back to the same thing is have an interview them with what's bothering them, what's keeping them up at night, and build rapport by going, is this also a problem? Well, if this is a problem, are these other 5 things happening? Yeah. How did you know that? Oh, well, I've talked to a lot of founders in your position before and we've helped them with these things here. And let me show you an example of that. Like you're really trying to build a peer-to-peer level relationship. And they're kind of the 4 different stages that I tend to deal with. And they're all requiring different approaches on how you handle them. And then if we go another layer out, there's different types of people in each of those segments. Just to get really nerdy here for a second, you have the person who wants to be the pilot. They want to feel like they're the decision maker. They're the one flying the plane. They're the one that they're the GOAT. They're the hero. You want to make it look like you know exactly what you're doing. I'm just here to support you and usher you, right? But then you have the co-pilots. They want to pilot with you. They're like, hey, I fly the plane this way. Do you have a better way of flying it? Like when the weather comes in and the storms come in, like I do this. Do you have a better solution? Like they're collaborative. They want to work with you. Then you have the person who's like almost a co-pilot, but they're a passenger. So they're kind of like just behind the cockpit and they're like, show me what you're doing over there. I just want to understand it. They don't want to fly, but they want to know what the hell's going on. And then you have the type of business owner who's like way in the back, you know, drinking a cocktail. They don't give a shit. They're like, you deal with the flight.
Don't crash.
Just don't crash and burn, or I'll stop paying invoices. So you have to understand that there's like 4 different levels to business, and then there's like 4 different ways people like to do business. So when you're on a sales call, ask yourself: is this a pilot? Are they a passenger? And you have to adjust how you handle them based on how you identify how they like to run their business.
Yeah, I think, and the important thing really is if they're a personality type and you get it wrong, there's just going to be friction. They're not going to feel comfortable. They're not going to trust working with you because you're not addressing the problem they want to. They're trying to ask you, you know, how are you flying this plane? And you're treating them like, don't worry about asking me because I know what I'm doing, you know? Yeah. So there's no trust. You will never hit the nail on the head.
I've got a story about where this went really bad and I lost one of the best like opportunities of my life in branding. And it was, so I read the room wrong. So what I'd done was a big fashion label here in Australia, like massive. They deal with like hundreds of millions of dollars of fashion. And their CMO reached out and they said, hey, like, you know, we need to do rebranding. I was like, I got you. Like, when can I get a boardroom meeting? So they booked in a meeting with the CEO and they had all of their team and the creative around this massive boardroom table on like the 40th level of this building. And what I did is I was like, I'm going to be a genius. I'm going to give like $150 to 18 of my team members. And I sent my team all across the city to their stores. So my team went into all of their stores all across the city and I gave them one job to do. I gave them a checklist and I said, go into the store, write down the music that's playing, take photos of the signage, let me know if there's swing tags on the floor. Like I was mystery shopping these guys. So I was like, this is going to be epic. I'm going to walk into this boardroom. They're going to think I'm a genius. And this is a prime example of someone who's a pilot. So I get into the meeting, shake the CEO's hand, and I'm just confident. I'm just being loud and bright. And I get up at the end of the table, and the first thing the CEO says to me is like, why should we pick you? And I was like, funny you say that. And I slam on the table this like thick, stack of papers. And I was like, I just mystery shopped 18 of your stores. And he sat back and crossed his arms, and I was like, shit. I was like, I fucked this up. But the best part about it, as he leaned back and crossed his arms, like 12 of his staff leaned forward and put their hands together. And they're like, oh, this guy just started World War III. And you could tell that the founder was the pilot and he didn't like to look like an idiot. So he asked a question.
He didn't want you to call him out on what was wrong in the store.
I called him out right off the bat. I was like, I mystery shopped all your shops and I got all the problems on the table. And he was just like, fuck you, dude.
Mainly probably because all his team was there as well. Like if it was just one-on-one.
He's like, bro, you just made me look like I'm the cleaner like of the plane. Like, So in that moment, I realized like, okay, if someone's the pilot, you got to do your homework. I should have done my homework on the CEO. I should have. You should go into a pitch knowing what you're dealing with. You can find a lot on LinkedIn. You can find a lot by just talking to people around town and going, tell me about this guy. How should I handle it? Had I just gone in there and just made him seem like the hero and suggested, I might have some ideas from you. I want to know what you think. I would have won the pitch. 100%.
Did you ever save it or no, it was gone?
There was no chance I could save that deal. I pissed him right off. And if anyone's listening to this and knows was in that meeting, good on you.
Give me a call back. One more chance.
I can brand it, I promise. But yeah, I checked back in months and months later and they ended up working with someone else and they gave me some feedback. They're like, man, you just came in too hot. Too much hot sauce, dude. Pissed the guy right off. And I was like, cool. You just have to make sure you hit the right note. You got to play the right music for the right crowd. You can't play Metallica for a Swiftie fan. You're going to hit the right notes.
So I never knew this was a thing, but I met a guy the other day who's in marketing and he just started a business. He's excited. And I said, look, dude, I've met 400 of you. Tell me one thing you do that I haven't heard before and I'll give you $1 million, you know? And he goes, I'm really good at ABM. And I was like, what the hell is that? And he goes, account-based marketing. I was like, okay, give me an example. He goes, well, I worked at XYZ company, massive multinational. And in their marketing department, if they wanted to win a customer who to them was worth tens of hundreds of millions, like massive companies, then what they would do is they would get a team together that would attack that business. How are we going to win them? And what they would do is they'd do things like break down the board and go, right, the CEO is a member of a Bondi run club. You're a runner, go join his run club. And the guy doesn't know that he's running alongside someone's trying to win their business, right? And so he starts telling them, oh, they're chatting away. They grab a coffee. What do you do for work? And he tells them, I work at ABC company. And then they get into passions and he goes, oh, actually, I'm really big on Indigenous charities, right? And then they'll take that nugget and go, right, when we pitch him, make sure it's tied back to an Indigenous charity outcome. And then we go to the CFO and we see what he's into. And he's got a kid who's into Lego. Okay, let's get a custom Lego made for him and we'll give it to his kid. And when his kid builds it, our branding will be in his literal living room. And I was like, this is like, it's like Matrix stuff. But that's what these huge, so that doesn't happen, that's what these massive guys they've got hundreds of thousands of dollars to burn on a team of people to do this stuff. Yeah. That's how they figure it out.
Yeah, you got to figure out like who you're talking to. You got to do homework, man. And I think, it's a great example. Like, we've found that some of the biggest deals we've done has just been like grabbing a dinner with someone, learning about how they see the world or why they got into business. Like, slow it down. I think, something that I've been training our sales team on recently is like, guys, like, we're going to be like the Navy SEALs here. And they're like, dude, we're not in the military. I'm like, no, but like the Navy
I've played enough COD. I'm telling you, do it.
Yeah, dude, I'm right on Battlefield 6 at the moment. I'm loving it. But yeah, I said to my sales team, like, no, they have this great mantra. It's like slow is smooth, smooth is fast. I'm finding with the enterprise clients, just slow it down a little bit, smooth it out a little bit. That's the fastest way to get the deal across the line. Take them out for coffee, take them out for dinner. Awesome. Go join a run club with them. Like take the time, because these guys, they're tired of dealing with people that are transactional and their bullshit radars are really sensitive, like I said, and you got to take your time to make them believe like, okay, this person's like a cool person to be around. You want to be a good vibe. You want to be a good hang. You can't just be, I promise I'm going to deliver. They're so far ahead of the game. If they don't work with you, it doesn't matter. So they're at a point in business where they want to do business with people that they get along with. Also, they've been through hundreds of staff turnover. They've been through tons of agencies. They've seen it all. And if you're the one person that they're like, man, I could kind of see myself having a beer with this guy, or, you know, going out on a girls' night with this girl, like if you can get that energy, they're way more likely to do business with you. It sounds simple, but like building the relationship first model is how you get in the enterprise door.
Yeah, if we tie the last couple of points together, what you said there was actually the gold nugget, which is the fastest way to win a big customer is to do it slowly.
You got to slow it down.
Because if you rapid fire them, like you're cold calling your $1 million businesses, then they're going to feel that, you know, because you're treating them the same as everyone else.
Exactly. And I think there's like the 0 to 1, you can rapid fire those guys. No problem. Yeah, like 1 to 5, sure. Because they're in the heat of battle. They're like, get it over with, like whatever, solve the problem. But if they're north of like 50 mil, they're in cruise control. They're going away on holidays. They're, you know, it's a different.
And they're only making a couple decisions a year. You can't rush them to do that.
No. And you got to slow it down. And I think sometimes, slow it down, build a relationship, connect with them. And then once they realize this guy gets it, they understand my problem. And there's really a handful of things you got to make sure you get right. And people always think it's price. Price is not the issue. In almost every case,
literally,
price is not the issue. And people will hate me for saying this, but like pricing is not the reason people aren't working with you. The first thing you need to identify is what's their problem. And don't just assume, don't just guess, and don't even believe the first thing that comes out of there.
And not what you hope their problem is, because you're trying to make your solution fit it.
That's another problem, right? Is you're trying to think their problem is something, because that's the puzzle piece that you fit. Just delete the fact that you have a business for a moment, and just you have to connect with this person and go, what is their actual problem? I've had clients on the phone with me tell me, dude, I'm about to get divorced if I don't solve this problem. I'm like, okay, cool. How important is it that we do this thing to prevent you getting a divorce? They're like, honestly, man, it's above everything. Then I'm selling them branding on their divorce. This sounds ridiculous, right? But they're like, man, if I can't create a system and then get this to delegate to my team and then spend more time with my wife, she's going to divorce me. I'm like, we can make that happen. Yeah. So take the time to identify what their actual problem is, and don't believe the first thing that came out of their mouth. He didn't get on a call and say, I'm going to get a divorce. I was like 2 hours into a conversation with him. He's like, actually, man, like if I don't solve this, like my marriage is on the rocks. I'm like, we're going to solve it. The second thing is, once you've identified their problem, is you need to identify the right product fit. They need to believe that the product is the actual fit to their problem. If they go, yep, this is the actual problem, and that's actually the product that would likely solve this problem. The next thing is, what's the process of making sure it works, Dain? Well, this is the hoops we're going to jump through for this product, for this problem. The last thing is, are you the person I want to do this with? Which is back to the relationship. Slow as smooth as fast. So you want to be the right person. You want them to think, you know what, I can see myself really working with this person on this process, on this problem, on this product. This is the right person for me. They're not trying to be transactional. They understand what I need for my specific problem. If you can stack those 4 things, price goes out the window. Even if they have to stretch, get a loan, go into debt, sell their car, remortgage their house. I've had people do crazy shit to be able to afford what we do because I've nailed those 4 things.
Yeah, and for the bigger customers, they've usually got more budget somewhere. They'll just pull it from there. If it means everything else aligns, they'll find it.
Yeah, I've had people go to the bank of mom and dad. I've had people slap it on an Amex. I've had people sell the BMW that they don't drive as much. Like, people will find money. People have money. And you can play a trick as well. Like, look at, where they live, the neighborhood they're in, the car that they drive. Like, people will tell you to your face, I'm broke. Like, I've had real estate agents that have 160 locations and multiple Ferraris in their garage tell me I don't have a lot of money.
What they mean is after the repayments, they don't have a lot of money left.
What they really saying is like, don't screw me, give me a good deal. Everyone wants a good deal, but price, person, problem, process, and product trumps price.
And I've noticed as well, the objection handling, let's say for $1 million and below, is like all lies, right? It's, I'm too busy, mate, call me later, or I don't have time for this, or I've already got 10 or whatever. But when you go to 5+ or 10+ mil customers, they'll just tell you, listen, I just don't trust that what you're saying is true. Yeah,
we find that all the time. Like someone like 1 to 10, they'll just straight up tell you what they don't trust about you.
Yeah.
Just ask them. A question I ask, and this is a great one-liner, and I learned this in insurance, is, look, if hypothetically you were not going to go forward with this, other than the price, what would that be? Oh, it's
They'll give you the answers you need to overcome. Yeah.
Your objection as a sales representative of whatever company or someone who's a founder is like your job is to flush out the real objection. You know, you got to get the black swan. Like, what is it? Like, what's really stopping you? And if sure, it's a surprise, but if it wasn't, like, what else would it be? 90% of the time, they'll just straight up tell you. And then you got to get crafty with how to turn that around and how to flip it in your favor. But yeah.
Grant Cardone for that one, man. He's a weapon at that.
The Closer Survival Guide is the best book on the planet for that.
The Closer Survival Guide.
Yeah, okay. The Closer Survival Guide. You can get it on Spotify for free. But it's like 364 ways to close a deal. It's really fun. And it's like if someone says, I got to check with my wife, I got to think about it, I don't have the right money right now, I got to pray to Jesus about this. He's got to close for every objection. It's a ton of fun. But yeah, flush the objection and then get crafty with it. I got one more quick story if you want it, unless we get a wrap.
No, we got time.
So I got a story about like I worked at Godfrey selling vacuums at one point in my life. And this is when I was like obsessed with Grant Cardone. I was listening to this particular book. And the issue we had at Godfrey's was, you know, we don't have the cool Dysons and stuff. We've got these Hoovers and Saubers, like these old machines that have been around for like 20 years, and they're trying to flog these old machines. And the biggest issue we had was we'd run catalogs in the mail, and, you know, who loves catalogs in the mail? Old people. So I had this elderly lady. She comes in. She's at least in her 70s. And she literally put her hand up and was like, don't talk to me. I just want a $50 vacuum. I was like, absolutely, ma'am. Right in this corner over here. I'm just going to show you one. You don't need to show me. I'm just going to show you the vacuum. Plug it in the wall, hand it to her. And she's like, this vacuum sucks. And I was like, I know, not the right way, you know? And she kind of smirked, and I kind of cracked her a little bit with a laugh. And I was like, I'm going to show you another vacuum. Come to the other side of the store. She comes to the other side of the store. And I had grabbed this other machine. It's called a Sauber. It's like gold plated. It's this German engineered monstrosity of a machine. And I turn it on, and it has like a power head on it, which is like a rotating brush that drives. So you can literally hold it and it will drive itself across the carpet. And I was like, do you have a cat? She's like, yeah. I was like, what's your cat's name? I don't know what the cat's name was, but she's like, Mittens or something. I was like, oh, do you have a photo of Mittens? She's like, show me the vacuum. She just
didn't want to borrow it.
She didn't want to borrow it. And I handed the machine, and I was like, how does that feel? She's like, oh, this is pretty good. How much is it? I think it was like, I was like, oh, it's like $5,000. She goes, oh, that's stupid. I was like, I know it's pretty stupid, but there's this line in this book, and I don't know what came over me to use this line, but I noticed on her like her keychain, she had like a Salvation Army key ring. I was like, oh, she's charitable at least. And I said this line to her. I said, I know it's expensive, but how great is it to live in a place in the world where someone like yourself, you could have something like this? And she pulls out her Amex and just goes, put it on the Amex. But like there's these one-liners you would think you wouldn't have the audacity or the comfort to use.
Yeah, yeah.
But something about that line hit her. She looked at me with like, you little son of a bitch. It's almost like I hit her ego. And she's like, all right.
Sometimes you've got to do that. You've got to give them a reason to do it. Because they're also internally, she probably wanted it the second she saw it, but in her head she was like, I'm not spending that kind of money. You just had to give her a reason to spend that kind of money.
Yeah, and I touched on that nerve of like, you live in a beautiful place of the world and you could have it if you wanted it. And she's like, put it on the Amex.
Yeah.
You know, I've had so many stories like that. Like, and I talk about this to my sales team often. And I'm like, guys, like, go for it. Like, Grant Cardone has this great teaching where you can never say something that'll break a deal. You can always win a deal back. And people have fear of saying that one thing that's going to drive them off the cliff, like I did in that boardroom with that one guy. Sometimes you can, I guess. But like, you can always win a deal back. And I think had I had my toolbox of skills now back in that boardroom.
You don't know what you don't know.
I reckon I could have gone back. I reckon I would have just gone back into the building and like gone up to his desk and be like, bro, let me buy you a coffee. I don't want to apologize. Like there would have been a way to get that deal back. But I think sometimes you gotta swing for it. You gotta throw those one-liners out there.
You do, yeah.
It can work. I've seen it work hundreds of times.
So you guys just went through a rebrand.
Yes.
Obviously, that's a very long, slow, big decision for a business that does that.
Yeah,
commercially.
And the irony is we're a branding agency and it was painful to rebrand. Yes.
I will say though, your new logo is one of those ones when you see it, my first thought was, damn, I wish I thought of that. It's bloody cool.
Yeah. Yeah. For those listening, it's a chess piece that has a tiger's head on it. So the original logo we did, it's RIVYL. So the IVYL, it looks like tiger stripes. So we made a tiger our mascot back then, and no one understood why. So when we rebranded, I was like, no one understands why we're using tigers all the time. Because if you see our ads on Meta, we have tigers playing chess and all kinds of we have like a mascot. And it's a little gimmicky, but it gets the clicks and it works. And we're trying to get creative with it. But I remember people coming into the office and they're like, why is everything orange? Why is there tigers everywhere? So a part of our rebrand was like, we got to make this stuff make sense. And I think that, yeah, we've rebranded for a couple reasons. One, which was we had a challenge where our previous brand identity, and if you go to a website called thewaybackmachine.com, you can actually pull up the old version of the website. The Wayback Machine website, just FYI, is a place on the web you can go to find someone's old website. But anyways, if you look at our old website, it was like a punk rock, because I love punk rock, I love grunge, I'm like obsessed with graffiti and all things tactile. And if you come into my studio, I've got stickers and just crap everywhere. I'm maximalist. But it doesn't really appeal to beauty brands or fashion labels or women's hair care products and stuff like that. So if you land on the website, it's scrappy, it's grungy, it's textural, it was visceral. And we were just constantly getting on calls and people were like, can you guys do like high-end, calm, beautiful design? Yeah, of course we can. Didn't matter how many case studies I put in front of them. They're still a little nervous. So I think the way your brand or company represents itself visually really is the first conversation. People don't think about it this way. You think about the first conversation being the actual conversation. Your website, the visual identity system, is the first conversation a customer is going to have in their head when they see your business. And the reason why is humans don't think in words. They think in colors and symbols. So this language permeates the mind first. And no matter how much conversation I would have, people believe what they see, not what they hear. So if you see grunge and you hear elegance, you're like, not really
Doesn't
sure.
make sense, yeah.
So I did
one of them's a lie.
Yeah, one of them's a lie. So I did the math. I remember running the math on the deals we'd lost where people had said they're not sure if we're a good fit for their type of design. It was about $4.6 million in 1 year of lost deals. And I was like, sitting with my team, I was like, guys, we got to rebrand now. And they're like, oh, we're really busy. Can we do it in like 8 or 9 months? I'm like, we're going to rebrand now. And they're like, yeah, but I'm like, yeah, about 4.6 million. And they're like, all right, you kind of got a good argument going there. So we rebranded to keep up with how rapidly we were moving up the totem pole with the caliber of clients. Like the first few years, maybe 1 out of 50 clients would be north of 50 mil. Now it's like 6 out of 10 are north of 50 mil. So we needed the brand to be able to keep up. But yeah, we went through a full rebrands. We actually simplified. We took a lot of stuff out. So in the branding space, you really want the work to sing for itself. So we just started focusing on highlighting the client's work, pulling our brand back, having a couple of cool elements to just keep it chill. But we within 2 weeks saw a 500% increase in conversion and click-through on leads. Like our performance went through the roof just by hitting go on a rebrand.
Yeah, because it's realigning who you want to attract, right? And you're right. If you're an elegant brand and you see that, what are you meant to think? Of course, they're going to think that.
Yeah.
So you've got to adjust, like no different to shutting off an old way of doing ads or posts, right? You've got to readjust how you frame it.
Yeah, and I think it's all language, man. Like branding is the art of communication. It's just how do I get the person looking at it, scanning it, browsing it, viewing it to go, this is worth more of my time and attention. That's all you're trying to do. And I think sometimes people try to put too much at the tip of their company's spear. They try to be too many things. Like I was doing a workshop this morning, and I hope they don't mind me saying this, but it's the brand Odd Socks. Lovely founder, amazing team. And they have this beautiful concept around how they want to make it feel like it's an inclusive brand for everyone. And at the same time, it's like, well, guys, at the same time, like this narrative is kind of played out. Like we need to find something that feels new, that's refreshing. And they wanted their brand to be a lot of things. And at the end of the day, your brand can only be known for 3 things. Apple, simplicity, creative, ease of use. Nike, tenacious, winning, greatness. Like the best brands in the world are known for like 2 or 3 things. So in our case, we just needed to simplify the message. And in most of our customers' case, they need to simplify their message. And with Odd Socks, the message toward the end of it and what we're working on strategically now, it really came down to like odd, fun, and like playful. And that's like full stop. It's like if we can own those 3 things, we're going to decimate the stock market by doing the coolest content out there for those three things. And it's so important for brands to simplify. You think it would be a bad decision to keep it simple, but it actually always works in your favor.
And stops you contradicting yourself because it's fewer things to stick to in your narrative.
Yeah, you got to keep it simple. Like our old narrative for Rivals branding was like bold, tenacious, scrappy, and like fun. The new brand identity is like bold, strong, and like commercial. Which, and I mean commercial in a cool way, not like in like a Nike way, not like a like a boardroom table kind of way.
Yeah.
So I think when it comes down to it, just honestly, people need to simplify their message.
I think especially on social media, it's a great message to finish up on is the fact that keep it simple.
Yeah, and a good example of that is like GoPro. They're just showing people in action, or Red Bull. People are like, doing these crazy stunts. It's all about danger. It's all about pushing the human limits. And it's all about doing stuff people have never done before. That's a simple message, and it's super repeatable. You have to find a message that's simple, that has a lot of ability to be reinterpreted or remixed. So Red Bull's constantly remixing how they do those three things. Apple's constantly remixing how they do those three things. Your ability to do good branding is like own or be known for three things, but constantly surprise and delight people with how you show up and present those things in a way that keeps their attention. And I think people are scared of being simple because they think it'll get boring. But you got to say simple, and you got to have enough room where you can play, be spontaneous, be wild, be creative. But that's why it's so difficult, because on social media today, like you have to show up daily. You can't do a campaign for 3 months. It's like, what are we going to post today? What are we going to do in stories now? How are we going to write blogs on the website? Like this, it just requires such a magnitude of noise. But I think with where AI is going and how clever young people are getting, more companies just need to hire young people to come in and help them create a multitude of noise. Like, don't try to run a business with one table and one table leg. Like, put as many legs on that table as possible. And don't just try them. Like, go deep and like invest in like really trying to figure out SEO, really trying to figure out podcasting for lead gen. Like, we met with a guy yesterday from he owns like a property investment group, and he said to me, 50% of the leads that come through my business come from our podcast, and their podcast isn't even that massive. But half of all their leads come through their podcast. And I think people are underestimating the power of like testing a new format. And he invested in it for 4 years before it became that. Like, we invested in our podcast for a year before it monetized. Like, I was bleeding money on the podcast for a whole year. He was bleeding money on his podcast for 2 years. And then now half of his leads come from that format.
Yeah, it's the long game, right? You're not playing the quick, short, ADHD, paddock lap stuff.
Yeah.
Mate, thank you so much for coming in. Where can people find your book?
Yeah, man. Pretty much anywhere. It's on Spotify for free if anyone wants to just download it and listen to it. It's called the 90-Day Brand Plan. But pretty much every bookstore you can find it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Hey, dude. Thanks so much. It's been a pleasure. Appreciate it, man.